Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast. Today, we welcome Mike McGloin. He's a podcast host. He's a growth strategist. He's the founder of the Food for Thought Network, and he's the owner of Fuse, a marketing agency specializing in food and beverage. He works with top fast casual restaurant brands and progressive food startups globally. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you doing?
Doing really well, busy as always. Just really, we're kind of getting bogged down with all of this AI marketing technology, and there's, we talked about it before we started recording here, but there's just a sea of solutions. We're hoping you can help break down and try and find us through the weeds, so to speak. But before we dive into all this marketing technology, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your journey, and your experience to where you are now?
Sure, totally, mate. So first off, don't let my accent fool you. I am based in the US. I'm originally from a small little seaside town in Yorkshire called Bridlington. So my journey to within food and bev specifically started about 9 years ago. So I used to work for a brand strategy and digital agency from the UK, and I launched that into the US. And essentially, as we're doing these projects, we were getting attention from some people outside the industries that we were doing. And ultimately, I wanted to start my own agency. And as we're going through that process, Sweetgreen were getting in touch off the back of the work we were doing with my old agency. And lucky enough, when I started my new agency, Sweetgreen were our first client, and we did a big creative and digital project for them. So naturally, we built a business off the back of that. With that's how we went into the food and bev industry, essentially. Obviously, a really good case study how to have as your first client. And from then, we do like brand strategy work, we do digital work, we develop marketing technology, which we're going to discuss today. So that's essentially my journey. So within that, we do various different digital activations, marketing activations. So it's going to be an interesting conversation because even 12 months ago, the world has changed. It really has, and it's just going to continue to go like that. So I'll be coming at this from like a slightly different angle because the conference that I've been to this year, I've been lucky enough to chair a couple of them as well on tech in restaurants. It's very noisy out there, so it'd be interesting to get your take on it as well, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely correct. Everything has changed immensely over the past year, and Jose and I talk about it all the time. The restaurant space is just this mind-boggling how fast everything is changing with all these new technologies. That being said, let's talk a little bit about marketing saturation and differentiation. Every day there seems to be a new product or solution that claims to help restaurants. They all sound the same. Mike, how can restaurant tech companies truly stand out in this crowded market?
I think for me, and I go back to an Industry Now event I was at quite recently. It was digital transformation in QSR, and you had a group of providers, restaurant tech companies, essentially showcasing their solution at the show. Then you had the speakers, multi-unit franchise leaders across the board. So it's interesting to get a take on that, on what's going on in the industry, because as I said before, it seems like every day a new solution's popping up. But for me, it's going back to the basics. For me, it's and I'm going to quote a Simon Sinek quote here, but people don't buy things, they buy feelings ultimately. And without sounding too harsh on the tech providers were there, but some people are doing it well. They all sound the same. Like a lot of them, for me, they all sound the same. It's just like, we're going to save you money, we're going to save you time, we're going to do this. And, it just seems like there's no real differentiator from a communication strategy and what that looks like. So again, this is just fresh in the mind. So the speakers were at this event. Not only do they want to see the problem that you're solving, but one of the things I think that from a communication standpoint that they want to hear is that you're in it with them as well. Because ultimately, running a restaurant is quite stressful, and it's, I think there needs to be a bit of empathy on that in terms of the solution that you're providing, not just, quite vanilla marketing strategy and communication strategy, because a lot of people are doing it the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. I think you hit the nail on the head. All of these solutions are starting to sound alike. And it's easy for you and I to work on a tagline for 3 or 4 hours throughout the day and really nail down that messaging. So we think, but from an operator standpoint, from the restaurants, they just want to get something out the door. They just want to get that email out. They just want to make sure that they're present on social media. And so being able to really refine that message and cut through all of the noise, it's mind-boggling. Jose?
No, I agree. I think that it's almost like the noise is the gatekeeper.
Mm.
And, at the end of the day, we all know when you're in business that you're offering a service, you can only save time, save money, or make more money.
Yeah.
So it would be like as boring as if everybody would be like just saying that. Oh, I'm here to save you time and make you money. As like, okay, yeah, like everybody says, or would, so how do we make it less boring?
Mhm.
But what comes to mind is more around building trust. Okay, so trust is crucial in any business relationship, especially in the restaurant industry, for sure. What strategies can operators use to build and maintain trust when communicating digitally to the guests?
I mean, it depends. I think again, it's bringing it back to like who your customer is, where they're hanging out. What type of message you put in across the board. Is that consistent? Ultimately, trust for me is it's not just like a tagline. It's not just how you're communicating. It's like what the brand is. And for me, good branding and good marketing is what people say when you're not in the room. And that's the power of good marketing, good branding, because and that doesn't happen overnight. That's in the DNA of who you are as a business, in my opinion. And then it's like teasing those messages out, activating that on the different channels that they're working on. So again, it's just I feel like it is just bringing it back to basics, across the board on how these different tech companies, can build that trust through, all of the things that I've mentioned, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it for me, it's authenticity. It's not about quantity, it's quality. And I know that sounds like a cliche,
Mhm.
but when a business, let alone a restaurant, reaches out to me after I've interacted with their business on whatever level that may be, if it's a sincere question, how was your meal? How was your experience? How was your exchange? And mine was really good, really bad, or tepid. I respond well to that instead of some blanket message saying, check us out on social. Right? Like we don't need that. We don't need that anymore, and that we know that is just auto generated or just a box that you're trying to check off in order to cover all of your marketing channels. So but again, back to sort of cutting through the noise and this market saturation with so many solutions, Mike, bombarding restaurant owners, how can they effectively evaluate and choose the right technology for their business?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from you lads. Actually, how because you're in the game and you must have seen it change quite a lot over the last 12 months. How are you seeing it? Because as I said, it is noisy out there, and this goes beyond restaurant tech, right? This
Mm.
this this just goes beyond. This goes that feel like people are quite nervous, quite scared. They're quite overwhelmed. Things pop up every day. You've got bombarded these messages. How have you seen it change in the last 12 months? Just in terms of engaging these operators, engaging these restaurants. What are the main differences you see from now to the start of 2023, for example?
Jose, you want to handle that?
Well, I mean, I think that in all this saturation, one thing that comes to mind is that those candidates, and I'm sorry to forget the politics, but the candidates that talk about unity, but they're doing the opposite, like you said, like when you're not in the room, what is actually happening, right? And I think that that touches into authenticity because at some point it will come up, someone will notice. Even in human to human conversation, you kind of like can feel that someone's lying to you. So I think that the thing to come across, of course, a unique message, a unique way of communicating, but that it
Mm.
encompasses that it may be because the only way to break through noise or in the entropy of a chaotic system, it's usually a regular pulse that helps regulate it. So I
Mm.
think that regular pulse, it's that uniqueness, that authenticity and the regularity. Just like when we are creating this podcast and
Yeah.
being consistency,
Sure.
and right with that authenticity, the message and the frequency as well, because it starts to show. And I think that is just the opening of beginning a conversation, and then the integrity that I was talking about. How do we demonstrate that? How do we bring it out so that it really touches others? That's where I think the challenge is in communicating and building a relationship.
Totally. And I think as well, you talk about trust. I think if you really break down like how a relationship builds and how build, bring customers on as, for any company, number one, they got to know you. Number two, they got to like you. And number three, they've got to trust you, and if you're not going down that journey, it's going to be hard to engage. And that's the thing. I think I love what you said earlier, Jose, that the noise is the gatekeeper. Not going to get to know you if you don't have that initial understanding your customer, understanding what those pain points are, because it's just going to go into the noise. So I think for me, how the engagement for tech companies in this space, they've got to know where they are in that journey, because you can only build trust if they know and like you, because I don't care who you are, like people buy from people they like ultimately, like most of the time. So I think you build up to that trust, but you unpack those problems from we call it the KLT scale. So unpack the problems in each one of those and understand where they're at in that journey, and then build your communications around that. And as I said, it's very simple, but I see, when I see it in the industry, and I see it on LinkedIn all the time. I see 100 messages a week, like trying to sell me something, and I always like to bring it back to a real world communication, right? Whenever we work with companies, whenever we work with tech companies, trying to restaurants, we have a look at the communications and stuff, and it blows my mind. Like it really does. It's like you look at like, right, what's your engagement strategy? We do this. We've been around for this long. We work with these type of clients. We do this. We do that. If you put that in a real world situation, and if you went up to someone in the bar, right, you said, "Hi, my name's Michael McGloin. I'm 37 years old. I'm from Bridlington. I'm do this." I'd be like, "Whoa! I don't even know you, mate. Like, chill out." But it's the same thing. Like it's the same like the human psychology of how to engage those type of people and how to engage those type of customers. And you're right. The noise is the gatekeeper, and you need to be different. You need to be understanding of the problems that you're solving as a restaurant tech company, and be empathetic of that. So that's my take on that. And again, it sounds very simple, but I do see a lot of people getting it wrong.
Absolutely. 100%. I think that just to add another layer to that, no one likes to be sold. They really don't until they hear an offer that they can't refuse. There is that layer to an offer when that something that is really truthfully well researched, well developed, and there's this offer like, hold on a second, yes, I want $100 in my pocket right now. Like, okay, I'm listening, right? But there aren't that many types of offers out there. And I also want to add, Mike, how you and I began actually chatting was over LinkedIn. I, like you, get dozens and dozens of automated messages, people trying to sell us stuff here, there, and everywhere. But what Mike did was he added, he messaged me with a voice note. And he said, "Hey man, you don't know who I am, but I want to introduce myself, and we may have some synergies in terms of what we're building and what we're doing, et cetera, et cetera." And he very casually yet pointedly added value within, I think it was like a 25-second voice note. And I was like, you know what? This guy gets it. He understands. And so absolutely, I made time to chat with Mike, and a few conversations later, here we are on a podcast. So yeah, quick shout out to Mike for his sales approach.
Yeah, and it's and again, it's like that the KLT scale, and again, this is going more on the sales side of things, but it all works hand in hand. Sales, brand, marketing. I don't care what it is. It's you're ultimately trying to get the same goal. You're not. For me, you're not trying to sell a product or service or anything. I don't care what you do. I don't care what industry you're in. that first interaction, you're selling a conversation. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything like apart from let's see if we can work. Let's build the start of this relationship with a conversation. And the people that I consult with, on the marketing side of things, that's what I say to them. I said, you're not selling a product or service, you're selling a 10-minute conversation, because, and that's it. So yeah, those voice notes, mate, it's like you try and I'm stitching myself up here because we're in a marketing technology company. I talk about automation. I'm trying, but that initial thing is, you do what everyone else is not doing, right? And again, it's that human interaction. It's doing it differently. A quick 13-second voice note, they work, they do, but people won't do them because they take a little bit more time and effort. So yeah, that, and again, it falls into the fact of people buy from people at the end of the day. I don't care what solution you've got, what industry you're in. That is the key. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like the key, and we talk about this a lot in this show, is the care. How do you communicate, transfer that care and emotion that it's authentic, which makes it effective and that actually touches people. But now that we're talking about these type of actions, let me ask you this: how should a restaurant tech company measure the success of their marketing efforts to ensure that they are actually delivering real value to their clients?
So from the lens of how should they affect how the marketing is performing for them as a business, how they're winning more clients themselves personally?
Yeah, well, basically, if the real, right, this authentic real value, how should a technology company, beyond just the KPI, how do you measure that there is a success and that they're actually delivering value, right? How can they measure that?
So there's various different ways to measure it. Like, if you're digging down into the data, it's like what you can, like, obviously conversion, of course. What is your message resonating? But you can look at all of the different data points, right? What is this email working? Is this LinkedIn sequence working? Is this, campaign on my website working? So there's various different ways you can do it. But again, I think it needs to go back a few steps from that anyway, because like I think that before you do the marketing, before you do any sort of messaging, you need to unpack a few different things. And I think that's where a lot of people I see get it wrong. They've not done the work at the start from a strategic point of view and a positioning point of view to take an active message to market, because I see it every day. So I think there's usually I think to truly understand the effectiveness and value of the marketing, I think there's usually work that's not done beforehand. That's where I think marketing companies like myself get the bad end of the stick, because they try and activate something when they're not ready, or they haven't done the work and they haven't done the positioning. So I think there's various different things that you can do that will impact the value of that for sure.
Okay, I have something came to mind that I want to add to. Maybe it's a monkey wrench, maybe it's something else, and that is sentiment analysis, right? Usually, when you're already a big brand, you can actually measure that with social media monitoring tools and why not, right? How would a smaller operation that doesn't have a big presence measure it?
In what way specifically?
Well, so if we're making I'm making a market, I do an effort. There's an effort. There's a campaign. It runs, and I am, maybe I'm answering my question at the same time.
That's fine.
Right? But it's like it just made me think, like, well, sentiment analysis is a good way of having a measure of what if the real value that we're promising we're actually delivering, or if it's the perception of it. If it's there. So. Are we even? I think that where my mind went to is like, are we actually getting feedback? Are we measuring enough feedback from our clients or with the people that we're interacting as a brand?
Yeah, Go. What do you think for that? Because again, I'd love to see it from your lens of how it's worked for you guys. Over the last couple of years and what that means to you.
Yeah, I think marketing as an entire industry is being flipped on its ear with the over reliance on MQLs, SQLs, and CRMs, and all of these wonderful things, and they've got these faux KPIs or key performance indicators that they're just filling up their spreadsheets with. I think that we need to get back to, and you said at the top of the show, Mike, we need to get back to organic conversations, real conversations, me and you, reading each other's body language, understanding the subtext in what we're saying, and measuring that is very, very difficult. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy. There's a lot of legwork to be done. There's a lot of analysis that you cannot automate. And I mean that really does
Yeah.
lead into my next question. But I really just want to say from the outset here is that with all of these tools, I think there's an over reliance on automation that is going to give us all of these data points that say, well, I'm doing my job. It
Yep.
says right here in the spreadsheet, check, check, check. But where are the sales, right? And so really, and AI has just accelerated that to, I can't even imagine. It's just mind-boggling. But customers are overwhelmed with AI and the complex tech jargon. Mike, I want to ask you, how can we bring it back to basics and focus on the core problems that these technologies are solving?
And it leads into your point, the over reliance on set and forget sequences. That's why still, tech brands in the restaurant space still pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to these conferences. Why? Because they have real human interactions, and that's it. And what I always say is, like, how do you take that away from the conferences? How can you have more of these conversations? How can you develop these relationships? Not hiding behind emails, not behind in that routing, because as I said, I don't care how fast AI develops. There's the real core relationships which drives business, and drives relationships. So again, it's don't get me wrong, AI and tech have got a massive place in that, and it does some amazing things. I use it every single day. I literally do. But it's understanding where you're going to plug it in. And how are you going to use it to effectively, solve the problems that you've got. But still, I think the brands that will win will understand that, and they understand where it can add value. But the brands that will win will ultimately, not rely on it, and understand that, it's not this shiny tool that's going to solve all the big problems. So I think, again, it's down to those human relationships, those human interactions, with what AI can do.
I agree. I think that what this is doing is it's kind of the cream rises to the top. And so the real marketers who are worth their weight will use AI and use these automations and I'm the same as you. I use it every single day. With messaging, with marketing, with a lot of business automations and everything. But the difference between a good marketer and someone who is not so good is that I'm going to use AI to take care of mundane tasks, things that I can do behind the scenes that are going to get a bulk of my legwork done. And what it's going to do, it's going to free me up to be me in front of customers, in front of restaurateurs, in front of, our partners, and a lot more FaceTime. That's the advantage AI is giving to me. And to others, they're going to use it to further distance themselves between FaceTime and say, well, I'm using all of the tools. Why is this not working? And they go into their deep little rabbit hole of believing that this is the way of the future, and this is how they're going to make sales. So, I mean, that's kind of my approach to all of these new automations.
Totally. And we talked about earlier this week. It's, again, for me, how do you show up differently? Specifically on LinkedIn from a B2B standpoint, is the social proof aspect. So how can you attach social proof to anything that you do? For example, we use AI in our marketing stack for restaurant tech clients. And anytime we attach social proof to a post, 10x engagement. It really is, and it's like, I don't see as many people doing it as they should, because can you attach someone in the industry to this post if you can and do it effectively, which again is what we do as part of what our technology does. It always performs the best. And again, it's back to that human relationship, social proof, cutting through the noise. So yeah, totally agree with what you said.
Yeah, we have these sessions of pounding the pavement where we go and visit the restaurateurs and just have conversations, and it is so rich. Like I wish sometimes I had like a floating camera or like a mini drone thing just to record it so that then I can take notes and revise and be like, okay, oh my God, that was so unauthentic, Jose. It's fascinating. And I guess, that's what sometimes coaching helps with. And
Right.
so going back to now we know, I mean, we agree completely that it's easy to get lost in the technology. But at the end of the day, it's about the people, right? So how important is it for tech companies to understand the human aspect and the daily struggles of restaurant owners and staff?
I think it's everything. I really do. I think it's everything, because once you can understand that from a positioning standpoint, you can start agitating those problems really effectively. If you can really know what's going on at, shop level, floor level, really understand that this problem is not letting people go home at night until 11 o'clock. It's making get up at 6 a.m. It's making all of these different things. When you really start unpacking those problems, you can start to agitate them. As I said, the conference that I've been to this year, some of the questions I asked is like, are you getting engaged effectively with from tech companies? Because the likes of Andy Hooper, Troy Hooper, all of these guys who've been in the industry years and years and years, they don't feel like they don't feel like that is the message that they get across from the problems you're trying to solve. There's no real empathy towards it. It's very stale. And again, it's coming back to like understanding who your customer is, what those problems they have at the store level, and then really unpacking that and coming with some really thoughtful messaging behind that, because it can make all of the difference. So yeah, I think it's about a little bit about empathy, in terms of understanding that, and then communicating that in a really, really structured way that looks at this that from a problem point of view, the solution, and then where's that white space where you can play.
That's yeah, I couldn't agree more. Authenticity, empathy, like at the end of the day, humans with humans, right?
Yeah.
I love conferences, for the record.
I really don't blame the average operator that sort of shuts their door or turns their back on a MarTech company coming at them saying, we just want to make your life better. We want to save you money. We want to improve your world. Because they're just getting at it like those 100 arrows are coming out and they got the shield up. Like, give me a break. Like, you've got to come at it from a standpoint of these guys are extremely busy and their time is at a premium. You need to be able to establish trust, or you need to speak to them on a level that they understand. Again, nobody likes to be sold. So, I mean, it's kind of funny that we started off this show. The theme of this show is AI and marketing automation, and all we've talked about is bringing in the human element to your messaging and your marketing. That's the only thing really to take away in my mind from this episode. Is like, get off of your butt, get away from the computer screen and go and talk to people and talk to your customers and find out. Don't tell them anything. Just go and talk to them and ask them questions and see, and that's where your messaging is going to come from, and use the automation for the other stuff, for the filler stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have for this episode today. Mike, now's your time to plug away. Where can people connect with you? What's your platform of choice?
Sure. Yeah. LinkedIn. That's it. I literally feel like I live on that platform. So yeah, if anyone wants to see what I do, Mike McGloin at Fuse, I'm the founder of Fuse. So yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm literally on there about 10 hours a day. So I'll see you there.
That's great. Speaking of plugs, this podcast was sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses artificial intelligence to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Again, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks to Mike for joining us. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
Stand out because noise is the gatekeeper. Bye,
That's a
Jose.
that's a great quote. I really like that. The noise being the gatekeeper. Why have you held that from us for so long? That's the first time
You
I've heard
know,
that.
those gold things, like just
There you
to
go.
hamper you.